Press play to uncover the sinister truth behind 7 cursed hours of haunting, terrifying secrets. Jenna Williams sighed heavily as she stumbled into her dimly lit living room, her exhausted limbs heavy with the weight of another long shift at the diner. The faint smell of grease clung to her clothes, mingling with the lingering sweetness of her children's bedtime stories. Mia and Ethan were finally asleep, their small forms hidden beneath an array of colorful blankets. As she glanced around at the mundane chaos that made up her life, her eyes landed on a dusty box in the corner, the remnants of her past, filled with lost treasures and forgotten memories. Driven by an urge to escape, Jenna dragged the box into the light. Inside was an old VHS tape, labeled 7 Cursed Hours. The ominous scrawl sent a chill down her spine. Surely it was just junk, an old movie she had tossed aside in her youth. But curiosity clawed at her tired mind, beckoning her to press play. After a phantom pause, she wrestled with her instincts, and, with a sense of foreboding, slid the tape into the VCR. The grainy footage flickered to life, revealing their once quiet neighborhood through a grim lens. The neighborhood she thought she knew. The chilling frame unveiled images of children playing, laughter echoing, contrasting sharply with sudden disappearances and frantic parents. Panic and dread washed over her, the shadows underlying the simple moments sending her heart racing. The tape delved deeper, revealing unsettling symbols woven into the backdrop of their daily lives. An innocent drawing morphed into an ancient, sinister mark. Suddenly, she heard a faint giggle drifting up from the backyard. It was Mia and Ethan's laughter, but there was an edge to it, a haunting undertone that made her stomach churn. Had the tape awakened something? It couldn't be, she told herself. Fatigue muddled her judgment. As her heart raced, the familiar flickering of her lights drew her attention. They danced ominously before plunging her into darkness. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Jenna's fingers trembled as she reached for the remote, resolutely turning the volume up. Maybe the tape would reveal more. But the more she watched, the more the fabric of her reality began to warp. Creeping shadows elongated on the walls, taking on menacing shapes that sent a shiver racing down her spine. Each small creak of the old house erupted in her mind, morphing the familiar into something sinister. A distant tapping echoed, tangible and steady. Was it the wind? Or something else, something waiting? The urge to figure this out tightened around her throat. Her instincts screamed at her, reminding her that danger lurked just beyond the glass of their safety. A single drop of sweat trickled down her forehead as she glanced at the clock. Time was slipping away. She could feel it. Just as she began to grasp the gravity of her predicament, eerie whispers swirled through her home, curling around her tightly. Jenna could sense it, the boundary between safety and terror bending, shifting. With every second, the line blurred further. Were her children safe? Heart pounding, she turned to the backyard once more, her thoughts spiraling into a dizzying abyss. She had to discover the truth before it consumed her entire world. Would she uncover the horrifying reality in time to save herself and her children? Or was it already too late? Jenna's heart thundered in her chest, drowning out the soft murmurs of the tape. Shadows jostled in her peripheral vision, and the familiar furniture of her living room morphed into grotesque forms under the flickering lights. The fear gripping her throat tightened as she imagined her children outside, giggling just beyond the glass doors, unaware of the malevolence lurking in the darkness. With a deep breath, she switched off the tape, the sudden silence closing in around her like a vice. Her palms were clammy as she rose to investigate the sounds emanating from the backyard. Mia. Ethan. She called, her voice shaking. The laughter persisted, a chilling echo of joy that twisted her stomach. They shouldn't be up this late, especially not after the horrors she'd just seen. The frigid air met her as she stepped onto the porch, bracing herself against the sudden chill. The moonlight barely illuminated the yard, creating a ghostly twilight. She scanned the area, her eyes darting to and fro, searching for her children's familiar shapes. "Guys, come inside." The words left her mouth, but the easy confidence faded as the giggles morphed into a haunting melody, something eerie and wrong. A cold shiver skated down her spine. "Mommy." A voice chirped from the shadows, too innocent, too sweet. Jenna's heart flipped, but then froze in her chest as she spotted a figure, a blurry silhouette in the moonlight. "Play with us." No, no, no. This wasn't right. Whispers spoke to her now, weaving through the trees, silent warning submerged in the back of her mind. She squinted harder, the darkness swirling around the figure like smoke. "Mia? Is that you?" The silhouette darted forward, an uncanny mimicry of her daughter's familiar form. But something felt fundamentally wrong. Jenna's instincts screamed for her to run, to protect her children at all costs, but her feet were rooted to the spot. It could be a trick. Suddenly, another voice joined in a sweet giggle that sounded too much like Ethan, accompanied by something else, something more sinister. "Join us, Mommy. It's fun." A tremor rippled through the air, and the laughter turned into a sound almost like weeping, twisting into something desperate and chilling. Panic surged through her veins. She snapped her head back towards the house. The front door stood ajar, beckoning her with an eerie glow. She had to get back inside. "Stay right there," she shouted, trying to sound commanding as she took a step backward. But the moment she turned, she felt tension coil in the atmosphere. The air thickened, charging with something unholy. It was as if the darkness itself had spoken, solidifying, closing in on her. Her heart raced as she sprinted toward the door, scrambling across the porch, desperation fueling her speed. The shadows twisted, almost reaching for her, and with a final burst she leaped through the threshold, slamming the door behind her. Breathless, she leaned against it, the thundering of her heart echoing in her ears. Was she safe? Fear pooled in her gut as she turned, only to see the TV flickering back to life, the words on the screen morphing. "Let them play. What did you do?" She gasped, backing away in disbelief. Flickers of danger swirled around her as she began to feel something latching on to her thoughts, something far deeper than her fear. Suddenly, a loud crash resonated from the backyard, shaking the house. Jenna stumbled, panic exploding her senses. As shadows raced across the walls, she realized she wasn't alone. Something was waiting inside with her, something that had come through the very door she had just locked. In that agonizing heartbeat, dread coiled tightly around her lungs. If she didn't uncover the truth behind the tape, would she lose her children forever? And as the whispers grew louder, she heard it again, that haunting repeated plea. "Join us." The darkness thickened, and Jenna knew she had to act fast. What if the truth was more horrifying than she could imagine? What lay buried in the depths of 7 cursed hours? The shadows in the living room twisted and churned like a restless sea, beckoning Jenna to look deeper into the darkness. The flickering television screen cast an unsettling glow, painting the room in hues of grotesque terror. Jenna's breath quickened, and a cold sweat broke out along her brow. "Who's there?" She forced the words out, trying to sound brave. But the echoes faded into an oppressive silence, thickening the air around her. She could feel it now, that sinister presence lurking just beyond her sight, closer than it had been moments before. "Mommy, we want to play." The sweet yet distorted voices of her children slithered into her ear, sending a shiver down her spine. They were so close, yet how could she trust the echoes of familiarity amid such dread? Jenna turned back toward the door behind her, but the house felt larger now, stretching out, its corners shadowy and jagged. The whispered threats laced the air, curling around her like smoke. With trembling fingers, she reached for the closest lamp, turning it on without thinking, but the light fizzled just before casting away the darkness. It flickered for a moment, then plunged the room into deeper shadows. "Stay away." Her voice wavered, cracking under pressure. She took a step toward the hallway, her mind racing. She needed to get to the kitchen, the knives. Apprehension uncoiled inside her, she could feel the shadows squeezing tighter, as if trying to draw her back into oblivion. In a desperate burst, she darted toward the hallway. The TV cast scattered images as she ran, oily figures, joined hands, laughing faces that morphed into twisted grins. Jenna stumbled, her hands grazing the wall, seeking support. A shudder raced through her, igniting a primal urge to escape. "Please, Mia. Ethan. Come inside. Join us, Mommy." They were so close now. She knew their voices so well, like a warm embrace turned sharply cold. A ghostly chill settled on her skin when she heard the strangest sound of nails raking against wood, small, frantic, trying to scratch their way in. "They're outside. They shouldn't be outside." Not like this. Panic surged through her and she lunged toward the kitchen, heart hammering like mad against her ribs. The knife drawer was only a few paces away, each second stretching into eternity as she flashed back to the tape. What had she witnessed? What was it hiding within those cursed hours? Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the kitchen in eerie brightness. Jenna froze. The room stood empty, save for the slaughtered remains of their dinner still cooling on the counter, yet she felt eyes on her. Shadows crawled back and forth on the walls, flickering like restless spirits. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw movement. "Mia. Ethan." She cried, spinning around just in time to catch a glimpse of small figures darting behind her in the living room. "No. Stay." Terrified, she skidded back toward the living room, only to find that the door she had slammed was no longer there. "Mommy, it's fun." She heard their voices from the darkness, gleeful and wrong, creeping under her skin. There was an energy and invitation more potent than fear tingling in the air. Her heart raced as she swept her gaze around the room, seeking any way to escape. The realization hit her, the children weren't just outside, they were here, with her, playing a game she hadn't agreed to. "What have you done?" Jenna whispered to the empty space, dawning realization crashing down on her like a heavy wave. A violent crash came, rattling the windows, and from the corner of her eye, she saw them again, small, shadowy shapes dancing in the dark, beckoning toward her. "Play with us, Mommy." Suddenly, the lights snapped off, plunging the house into a suffocating darkness. Jenna's breath halted, the very air snatching the sound from her throat. She could feel them, feel the laughter close, so very close. "No," she choked out. "I want tea." But as the whispers climbed to a crescendo, she felt the shadow of dread wrap around her mind, dragging her toward the unknown. What horrifying truth waited in the depths of those cursed hours? And now, was there even a way back? Jenna's heart thumped wildly as the darkness swirled around her. The air felt heavy, like a thick fog pressing down on her chest. The whispered laughter of her children grew louder, echoing in her mind. "We're waiting, Mommy, come play." A surge of primal terror gripped her. She could feel the shadows closing in, the malevolent energy wrapping around her, slowing her thoughts. She couldn't think she had to escape. Panic ignited a spark of adrenaline, and she took a step forward, but the ground beneath her seemed to shift, as if the very house conspired against her. "Stay away!" She screamed, her voice hoarse, reverberating against the walls that now felt alive. Shadows danced mockingly, distorting her vision into grotesque shapes. The children's laughter morphed into something sinister, a chorus of taunts that chilled her bones. The light bulb overhead flickered furiously, casting strobe-like flashes that revealed fleeting glimpses of dark figures darting through the corners. With trembling hands, Jenna fumbled for the kitchen knife she needed for protection. Each step was a battle, the room stretched like a funhouse mirror, distorting her surroundings. She felt the cool steel of the knife against her palm just as the darkness deepened around her, swallowing her whole again. Suddenly, a piercing scream pierced her thoughts, a sound so raw and full of anguish that it clawed at her insides. It was a scream she recognized. "Mommy! Mia! Ethan!" The names left her lips in frantic whispers, desperation flooding her. Adrenaline pulsed through her veins. Jenna made her way back into the living room, where silence fell heavy, her heart a wild drum echoing in her ears. "Mommy!" They called again, but this time the voices were off, twisted like puppets on unseen strings. Anxiety coiled tighter around her throat. The air was colder, and the shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, transforming from empty corners into looming figures. She felt their presence drawing closer, suffocating her. "Why aren't you playing with us?" They taunted, their voices eerily simultaneous, united in a chilling harmony. "We miss you, Mommy." She gripped the knife harder, heart racing, fighting a wave of hopelessness. "I'm coming for you." She screamed, but the words felt futile, swallowed by the darkness. She could still see flashes of movement, tiny forms flitting from shadow to shadow, dancing with glee in the eerie light. "Help us. We need you." Each plea struck her like a physical blow. Jenna stumbled, bile rising in her throat. "No. This isn't real," she yelled, though doubt seeped into her resolve. What if they were real? What if this was a nightmare she could never escape? The lights flickered back to life suddenly, illuminating the living room with an unsettling brightness. The figures froze, appearing just at the edge of the light, a cruel mirage of her children. Their once innocent faces now twisted in unnatural grins, shadows of malicious intent flickering across their features. "Time to come home, Mommy," they chorused, stepping further into the light, revealing their true forms, empty, hollowed eyes that glowed with unnatural hunger. Jenna's blood ran cold. "Mommy?" Ethan reached out, his tiny hand trembling, as if beckoning her into an abyss she couldn't fathom. "No. Not like this." Jenna cried out, turning back toward the kitchen. But as she bolted, the light flickered again, plunging her into darkness. Now, the shadows shifted aggressively, blocking her path, something wet and clammy brushed against her leg. Jenna let out a choked cry, the knife slipping from her fingers, clattering to the floor. Panic surged through her, forcing her to face what lay in the dark. With trembling breaths, she pressed her back against the corner, surrendering to the shadows swelling around her. "What do you want from me?" she gasped, the fear nearly choking her. "Play forever," the voices whispered sweetly, lilting like a lullaby, filling the space with false comfort. She blinked, trying to clear her mind. Was there still a way out? Or was her reality doomed to an eternal night, the walls closed? The shadows rippling like waves preparing to crash, and just as it seemed all hope was lost, Jenna felt a spark like the memory of a flickering candle in a storm. The truth she had tried to bury clawed at her, clawed for recognition. Could she still summon the strength to fight? "Where are you?" she gasped again, desperate. The darkness answered with a piercing silence, holding its breath. Was it her fear that created this nightmare, or was it truly alive? "Find us!" The chorus of laughter slithered back into her thoughts. Jenna clenched her fists. "I will. I'll find you." But as she settled into the darkness once more, the weight of her promise loomed large. What if what she was about to uncover was worse than losing them? A new chill settled over her, the clock ticking in the back of her mind. Would her next move bring salvation or doom? In the rising tension, darkness enveloped her like a tidal wave, whispering secrets that begged to be unearthed. What other horrors awaited in those cursed hours? Would she dare to press play? Jenna felt the grip of the shadows tighten, wrapping around her body, squeezing the air from her lungs. Her heart raced as she fought for every breath, but the darkness deepened, consuming her. "Find us!" The voices lingered in her mind, curling around her thoughts, disorienting her. She had made a vow, and now it echoed relentlessly. "I'll find you," she choked out, determination battling against the suffocating fear that threatened to drown her. The ground shifted beneath her, pulling her downwards. She stumbled, her hands scrabbling against the cold, smooth floor, searching for anything to hold on to. In that moment of despair, a flicker of clarity broke through the chaos. She remembered the basement, the last place she saw them before everything spiraled into madness. What if they were there, trapped in some horrific echo of their suffering? "Mommy, help us!" Each cry was a dagger, twisting in her heart. The despair flooded back, but Jenna forced herself up. She had to move. As the shadows swirled and whispered, she pushed away from the corner, feeling her way to where she hoped the stairs would be. Each cautious step felt like a gamble, the house trembling with ominous life around her. Suddenly, a figure lurched out of the darkness. Jenna gasped, her pulse quickening. "Who is there?" she blurted, the knife slipping from her grasp. "Mommy." A familiar voice, a thin, fragile echo of her son's Mia. "Ethan." The figure emerged into the dim light, and she felt hope blossom. But as the light flickered again, she gasped, it wasn't he. The children who stood before her. It was a distorted silhouette, an amalgamation of their forms, draped in shadows, with hollow eyes gleaming like obsidian. "Come play with us," the figure cooed, its voice a twisted parody of innocence. Jenna staggered back, terror clawing at her throat. "No. This isn't real." She turned to flee, racing towards the door, but just as she reached for the handle, the air chilled, and the door began to warp, the wood twisting and groaning as if it were alive. "Stay forever, let me out!" she screamed, frantic, her nails clawing at the door, but it wouldn't budge. The darkness laughed, a cacophony of her children's voices merging into one haunting tune. Each note resonated with despair, tugging at the once safe memories tucked deep in her heart. Jenna fell to her knees, breathing heavily. Her mind spun, despair compelling her thoughts down a dark spiral. Was there a way to save them, to navigate this nightmare? Or had she already lost them? Just as she began to give in to hopelessness, a flicker caught her eye through a crack in the door. A glimmer of light. Was there hope beyond this place? Jenna pushed herself up, drawing on the last vestiges of strength she could find. She was going to let the darkness have them, not without a fight. Rushing towards the light, she shoved her shoulder against the door with all her might. The shadows screamed in protest as the door creaked open, spilling forth a harsh beam that sliced through the murky gloom. Jenna launched herself into the light, heart hammering in her chest, but as soon as she stepped into the threshold, a chilling realization hit her: she was no longer in her home. The light transformed the shadowy corridor into a long and stretching path, lined with doors, each one pulsed gently, alive with whispers promising comfort and safety. "Mommy, don't you want to play?" It was both of them, sweet and sweetly sinister, entrancing the very core of her. Jenna's heart skipped. They were so close, yet so far. Each door beckoned to her, but with every step, a sense of dread washed over her. She glanced back. The darkness surged back, forming a wall behind her, trapping her in an otherworldly nightmare. "Find us." Jenna hesitated, glancing from door to door, each cracking open just slightly as if they longed for her to choose. What choice would she make? Which door led to freedom, and which to her doom? In that moment of paralyzing indecision, the shadows lunged forward, gaping mouths forming in the darkness, a chorus rising in a cacophony of despair. "Come and play, Mommy." Jenna's breath hitched in her throat as the doors began to shake, trembling with sinister anticipation. Would she step forward into the unknown or be consumed forever by the darkness? As the shadows closed in, she took a step. Which door will she dare to open? Jenna's heart thundered as panic surged. Each door pulsed with its own rhythm of terror, mirroring the frantic beats of her own heart. She stared at the nearest one, its surface marred and shadowy fingers creeping around the edges, eager to swallow what lay beyond. "Find us." The whisper pooled around her like thick fog, every syllable embedding itself deeper into her mind. They were close, but how could she trust the voices? They wrapped around her with deceptive warmth, tight like a familiar embrace, yet cold as the grave. One door stood ajar, a flickering glow spilling from the crack. She edged closer, the whispers melding into a symphony of agony and love, pulling her forward. "Mommy, open it." It was Mia, drawing her in, trusting her to make the right choice. But Jenna's feet felt like lead. If she opened the door, would she find them, or would she unleash nightmares she couldn't bear? She scanned the corridor, panic rising as shadows loomed larger behind her. The options weighed heavily: striking her like a punch. "Help us!" A jolt of resolve surged through her, and she lunged forward, yanking the door fully open. The light blazed, momentarily blinding her. Inside, she expected to see her children, safe and sound, but instead, a whirlwind of chilling memories swirled around her, every laugh, every tear, every intimate moment, rehearsing their lives in a twisted replay. "Mommy!" Their voices echoed from all sides, layered over one another in chaos, and the light morphed into blackness, swirling into a vortex. The room began to pull her in, and reality stretched, warping and twisting her perception. She couldn't tell if she was moving forward or collapsing inward. "Not this one." A voice more guttural than familiar roared in her mind. It split through the cacophony, a warning hanging in the air, thick with impending doom. Jenna staggered back, horrified as visions of her home morphed into images of dread. Walls melted, floors crumbled, and shadows coiled like serpents, hungry for her. She reeled back, searching frantically. With a burst of clarity, she remembered the other doors. Somewhere in this surreal labyrinth lay hope, or at least an escape from this sinister playhouse. She turned away from the glowing door, her resolve hardening like steel as she bolted towards the next. As she threw it open, a wave of frigid air washed over her. The new room was dark, but not empty. "Mommy!" Her heart turned to ice. The figures were no longer distorted shimmers, they were crafted out of her worst fears. Twin shapes stood at the edge, silent, watching with wide, hollow eyes. Their features were similar yet terrifyingly wrong, twisting her children's likeness into nightmare versions. "Stay with us!" A chilling whisper seeped from their lips, wrapping around her like a chain. The warmth in Jenna's heart turned cold. "Get away!" she screamed, stumbling backwards, unwilling to be trapped within her own fears any longer. As her back hit the wall, it felt alive, pulsing against her in rhythm to her horror. The darkness clawed through the crack in the door she just opened, inching its way toward her. "Tell me where they are," she demanded, though her voice shook. A shrill laugh rang out, sending icy fingers skittering down her spine. "Forever is a long time, Mommy." The shadows lunged, misty hands reaching for her. Jenna's breath quickened as she frantically spun around, desperately searching for a way out. She could not stay here. She would not let them take her too. As her hand stretched out toward the next door, a shattering cry echoed behind her, twisting the shadows into grotesque figures that danced toward her. Each step she took felt heavier, the darkness retaliating, clawing at her mind and heart. "Choose wisely," the whispers taunted, "or have your dreams become your worst nightmare." Jenna's resolve trembled. Would she have the strength to face the true horror lurking behind the next door, or would she become just another shadow lost in this hell? As the last of her courage flickered, she reached for the handle. Was it fate or folly? What new horror awaited behind the door she was about to open? Jenna's fingers trembled as they gripped the cold metal of the door handle. The whispers shrieked in her ears, growing louder, more urgent. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, willing herself to gather strength. What lay beyond? Could it be salvation, or would it send her spiraling deeper into madness? With a breath that pulled at every corner of her being, she turned the handle and thrust the door open. The room was vast, more akin to a frigid void than a space. The walls were shrouded in darkness, and an unnatural chill clung to her skin. Jenna peered in, heart racing, pulse echoing in her ears. Then something shifted in the dark. A pale light flickered and stabilized in the room's center, revealing a sprawling, twisted landscape not of land or sea, but of time warped and broken. An enormous clock hung in the middle, its face cracked and faded, each tick almost mocking her. The hands, frozen in a gruesome dance, pointed at a time long past. Shot through her mind was the feeling that she was staring into a void that encapsulated her worst moments and deepest regrets. "What do you want from me?" she cried, stepping inside, the door suddenly slamming shut behind her. A faint, taunting echo responded, "Every second you waste is a moment you could have found them." A shiver coursed through her, not from fear this time but realization. The clock. It had to hold the key. She stumbled towards it, each step like trudging through thick mud. She reached out to touch the timepiece, the cold metal sending jolts of terror through her fingers. The hands began to move, slowly at first, ticking backwards with an eerie resonance in the stillness. As the seconds unwound, shadows peeled themselves from the corners, coalescing into the grotesque forms of her past faces she knew too well, twisted into horrid grins. The shadows were not just reflections but manifestations of guilt and despair. They whispered her children's names, weaving tales of false hopes and shattered dreams. "Join us, Mommy." Their voices were sweet, seductive yet laced with poison. Her knees buckled, a deep sorrow threatening to pull her under. "No!" she cried, forcing back the tide of dark memories threatening to drown her. With all her strength, she recalled their laughter, their playful smiles, the moments when nothing seemed amiss. Each memory became a shield against the onslaught of shadows. "Find us," Jenna urged, pressing her palms against the clock. It burned hot, waves of heat curling around her skin, like a fearful reminder of time's unforgiving grasp, but the clock wouldn't yield. The hands moved faster, the shadows shrieked louder, and Jenna felt her grip slipping. In an act of desperation, she yanked on the clock's hands, wrenching them to a stop. The horror stopped, but not the terror. The shadows paused, forming a circle around her, their twisted faces inching closer. "Time is a cruel master, isn't it?" they chanted in haunting harmony. "Turn back, and pay the cost what cost." She rasped, a flicker of defiance igniting in her eyes. The figures lingered, waiting for her surrender. Suddenly, a new voice emerged within the cacophony, softer yet fierce, slicing through the darkness. "Mommy, help us." She spun around. The voice, clear and familiar, was that of Mia. The warmth in her heart flickered to life against the chilling darkness. Paralyzed by hope, Jenna realized finally where to direct her focus. If she was going to save her children, she needed to confront the clock's terrifying truth. "Show me the truth," she yelled, bracing herself and embracing the shadows, thrusting the door open into the wild unknown. As the shadows howled in rage, Jenna stepped forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. But what if confronting the truth meant reliving the moments she feared the most? Would her reckoning reveal something unexpected, or would it ensnare her in a web of despair once more? "Don't let the past consume you," Jenna whispered to herself, the weight of her choice pressing heavily on her chest. In front of her, a new door materialized, slightly ajar, glowing with an eerie light. But would it be the doorway to their salvation or the final trap? The glowing door beckoned, its light pulsating with an unsettling rhythm. Jenna sensed the urgency pressing down on her like a heavy weight. She could hear the muffled cries of her children echoing in her mind, their laughter twisted into something dark. A push from the shadows behind her nudged her forward, and she stumbled through the threshold, determination laced with dread. The world beyond the door felt different, heavier. A claustrophobic haze enveloped her, making it hard to breathe. She was in what seemed like a long hallway, each step echoing in the silence that swallowed her whole. Flickering lights lined the walls, casting long, precarious shadows that danced like specters mocking her every stride. "Mommy." The voice was softer this time, closer, wrapped in a chilling undertone. Her heart raced. Was it Mia? Jenna pressed on, desperation pulsing in her veins, clenching her fists tightly. As she moved deeper into the corridor, doors appeared along the walls, each one labeled with dates. Various memories began to flicker in her mind: birthdays, school plays, the last day they spent together in laughter. But they were overshadowed by painful reminders. The last moments she saw Mia and her son, Ethan, before everything turned tragic. Wouldn't she reach them if she just picked one? She paused at a door dated 5 years ago. A chill swept through her. That day was etched in her memory, their car crash. It was a moment she'd give anything to reshape. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside, the room was a twisted reflection of their last moments together. Glass from the shattered windshield glimmered ominously under ghostly lights, the air thick with an unbearable weight. As Jenna stepped into the scene, the world darkened and distorted. Time crumbled like brittle paper. Mia. Ethan. She screamed. The shadowy figure of Mia flickered in and out of sight, her small hands pressed against the car window, eyes wide with fear. Mommy. It hurts, her daughter's voice, dripping with sorrow, echoed through the warped reality. No. I can save you. I can save you. Jenna howled, lunging for the figure before her. But each step felt like trudging through quicksand, memories clawing at her like wild animals. The crash, the screams, the echoes of her children's pain swallowed her whole. Suddenly, the blissful memories twisted grotesquely, morphing into scenes of loss and despair. The laughter turned to wails, and shadows, swirling like smoke, surrounded her. They whispered tragic tales of consequences, of moments forever lost in an unending sorrow. You must relive it to free them, they hissed. Enough. She shouted, voice shaking but resolute. She felt her mind fracturing under the weight of it all. Their suffering wasn't hers to carry alone. Jenna's defiance sparked something in the air. A force shifted as the shadows wailed in fury. She grabbed hold of a heartbeat, a moment with her children in happier times, and suddenly it felt like a lifeline. I love you. I want to let you go. She yelled, her words bright against the encroaching darkness. In that moment, the room erupted with light, blinding and searing. Everything spun around her, a chaotic whirl of hope and dread. The shadows shrieked in fury as the brightness consumed them, turning their twisted forms into wisps of despair, but the ground trembled beneath her. A crack formed, hidden beneath the facade of familiar walls. Mommy. The voice of her son broke through, panic lacing his words. Hold on, Ethan. I'm coming. Jenna ran for the door again, just as it began to close, a dark abyss rivaling the haunted corridor spilling from its edges. As the shadows clawed at her, Jenna lunged forward, feet finding purchase against the force of dread. Would she reach her children in time, or was the past dragging her down into the darkness? With one final surge of energy, she leapt through the door, bracing for impact. The flash of light enveloped her. When the glow faded, Jenna found herself standing in a dark forest, memories swirling around her like ghosts. Among the trees, whispers of secrets went unfurling, taunting her, gnarly figures blending into the shadows. The fear gripped her throat, yet she steeled herself against the suffocating dread. Mommy, came a faint call, almost lost among the rustling leaves. With grim resolve, she ventured deeper into the looming darkness, following the sound. But what awaited her in the heart of the woods? Would it be a way to save them, or a surrender to their fates? With each step, Jenna felt the weight of despair intensifying. She had to find them. She had to face the truth, but truth has a way of revealing nightmares hidden behind every corner. What else would she uncover in these haunted depths, and was she prepared to confront it? The air thickened, a cold mist curling around her ankles as Jenna trudged through the oppressive gloom. Shadows flickered among the trees, their branches clawing at her, as if warning her to turn back. You shouldn't be here, they whispered, but the cries of her children drove her onward, each step an act of defiance against the despair gripping her heart. Mommy. The voice was clearer now. It tugged at her, desperate and frayed. Jenna felt the sting of tears pooling in her eyes. I'm coming, sweetie. She shouted, though doubt gnawed at her insides. She was lost in a nightmare, adrenaline pumping as shadows danced mockingly around her, warping the forest into something unrecognizable, twisted. As she pushed through the dense underbrush, gnarly roots reached out from the ground, threatening to trip her, to drag her into the abyss beneath the leaves. The distant sound of rustling foliage gave way to a myriad of soft whimpers echoing within her mind. Each sound seemed to come from a different direction, teasing her hopes, but feeding her fears. Jenna, a voice seeped from the darkness. It was low, coated with something sinister. You shouldn't have tried to escape. Whirling around, her heart thundered against her ribs. Was it her mind playing tricks? Who was there? She demanded, though every fiber of her being screamed to hide. There was only silence, the forest holding its breath as if anticipating something dreadful. The whisper curled around her again, thinner, sharper. There are truths you cannot face, moments stretched like hours, pulse quickening under the weight of an unseen gaze. That if she could only find Ethan and Mia, she thought desperately. I won't give up. She shouted to the encroaching dark. The ground trembled, as if acknowledging her defiance, but Jenna pressed forward. Each step was steeped in dread, yet also resolve. She refused to be a prisoner in this haunting web. The trees were getting thinner. Light, pale and cold, seeped through the branches, showing her a small clearing up ahead. The cries of her children melded into a chorus of unsettling tones, a cacophony swirling like vapor. Suddenly, she spotted a flicker of white among the shadows, a small figure crouched near a gnarled tree. Mia! Jenna gasped, fear and hope crashing together. As she rushed toward the figure, it morphed, hiding from her until she stumbled to a stop, heart racing. Mommy, her daughter's small, frail voice echoed, but the way it resonated sent chills down Jenna's spine. The figure rose slowly, transforming into something darker. The innocent eyes she longed to see turned into hollow pits of sorrow. Help us! A haunting refrain blurred the lines between reality and nightmares. It sounded like Ethan too. No. This isn't real. Jenna screamed, falling to her knees. The clearing spun, shadows weaving tighter around her, tightening like a noose. You're not real. I see you. I know my children. An icy laughter surrounded her, echoing in every direction. You cannot save them, you signed a different fate, it taunted. The ground tremored, shadows coiling closer like serpents. Leave them alone. Jenna shouted. The clearing flickered, the images shifting between her children's faces and twisted remnants of loss and grief. A vision of the crash moment thrust itself into her mind, blinding in clarity, the screech of metal, the shatter of glass. Suddenly, Jenna felt something pulling her back, the earth beneath her swaying unpredictably. Panic surged. She wouldn't let the dark consume her this time. Enough! She roared, finding her feet despite how the shadows attacked with renewed fury. With a surge of will, she pushed forward, determined to uncover the truth hidden within. But the forest seemed alive, twisting, warping more than just reality. What other horrors lingered in this cursed place? Then a piercing scream erupted, slicing through the air. It was her children, their voices blending into a haunting melody. Mommy! Help! They echoed through the trees, desperate and pleading, pulling her deeper into the suffocating gloom. As Jenna fought against the unseen, a terrifying thought clouded her mind. What if she wasn't alone in this nightmare? What if something or someone was waiting just beyond the veil of shadows? The realization struck like ice. She needed to find her children before the darkest secrets wriggled free from the fear. But in this labyrinth of despair, what truth lay veiled, and at what cost would it come? Jenna gasped as the air thickened, wrapping around her like a vice. She felt as if she were standing at the dark entrance of a cave, knowing the shadows had secrets she could not afford to leave unexplored. Mia! Ethan! She cried, the urgency in her voice bouncing off the trees. The darkness responded with a whispering laugh, chilling her spine, but with every scream of her children, her determination ignited. She pressed deeper into the ominous woods, heart racing. She could almost feel the warmth of their small hands, visions of their smiles blending with the shadows. I'm coming! She shouted, fighting against the rising tide of despair, the shadows clawing at her ankles. A sudden, pressing silence blanketed the forest. Jenna sensed a movement just beyond the gnarled tree line. With bated breath, she approached cautiously, scanning the dim expanse. Then she saw them, a flickering light in the distance, illuminating the ground beneath a massive old oak. Mommy! The cry was frantic, filled with desperate recognition. Jenna's heart soared even as bile rose in her throat. Mia! Ethan! The light pulsed with life, illuminating thin wisps of fog twisting like tendrils reaching for her feet. Stumbling into the clearing, Jenna stopped short, finding figures etched within the glow-twisted, grotesque mirrors of her children. Hollow eyes peered back at her, and she realized the truth in those shadows. Loss wore many faces. "Help us, Mommy," the figures intoned, their voices echoing with twisted harmony. Tears stung Jenna's eyes as she fought against the despair wrapping its tendrils around her heart. "No! Get away!" she screamed, stepping back, panic seizing her thoughts. She couldn't let them consume her. "Face your past." A voice boomed from the treetops, a guttural roar resonating through the ground. "Or lose them forever." "Never!" she declared, her voice shaking but defiantly filled with fire. Jenna turned back, intent on reaching the light, pushing through the cold grasp of darkness that threatened to snatch her away. "Mommy! Help!" came the voice again, clarity returning with desperation. Her feet began to move as if guided by instinct. This light had to mean something, they were close. But as she stepped closer, the light flickered and shadows danced hungrily at the edges. Suddenly, she felt a cold hand on her shoulder, a grip that sent a wave of dread surging through her body. Whipping around, her breath caught as she faced a true horror. The embodiment of guilt and despair stood before her, a hideous figure mimicking her children's faces, hollow smiles twisting into cruel ambivalence. "Join us, Mommy," came an echoing chorus, the sinister shadows reviving Jenna's deepest fears, fighting back a scream. Jenna recalled the memories, really recalled them now. They had to be her strength. "I won't lose you," she shouted into the darkness, storming toward the glowing light, driven by love and a determination as fierce as a mother's will. "I will get you both back." The shadows lunged, reaching for her with greedy fingers that sought to yank her down. But Jenna forged through, tearing away from the nightmare before her. With one final desperate push, she broke free of their grasp, charging into the light, reviving the memories of laughter, their giggles, the sunlit afternoons of picnic blankets, love, and sunlight, spilling through the doorway in an explosion of warmth. Time seemed to pause, the shadows were a mere veil behind her. With a single heartbeat, Jenna found herself somehow outside, her garden shimmering with fresh morning light. The sky glowed brilliant blue, the chaos of the night shattered like glass. "Mia. Ethan." she whispered, trembling, daring to hope. The garden was bright, the air sweet with the scent of blooming roses. "And then Mommy," came their voices, pure and high, floating on the breeze like gentle notes from a familiar lullaby. Her heart surged as she rushed toward the sound, finding them safe, giggling amongst the flowers, innocent and whole. "Oh my baby," she cried, crouching to scoop them into her arms, fear melting away with a rush of love. "Thank God you're safe." The shadows lingered at the edges of the garden, the pinpricks of horror reduced to nothing more than remnants of a world she had escaped. Jenna held them close, feeling the warmth of their little bodies, the undeniable connection lighting her soul anew. In that moment of perfect clarity, she made a vow. "Never again," she whispered fiercely, brushing her fingertips against their cheeks, feeling the warmth of life that had almost slipped away. The darkness had tested her, but defeat was not in her blood. Together, they stepped back into the light of their home, free to build a life touched by laughter, untainted by past burdens. The specters would no longer haunt her. She had faced down the shadows not just for herself but for her family. In the quiet that settled around them, Jenna understood. She had conquered the cursed past of 7 cursed hours. Life was bright again, and she would hold on to that light fiercely, but in the depths of the earth, unseen, the clock ticked ominously on. Don't let this experience slip away. Now's your chance to become part of our family. Subscribe immediately so you won't miss our next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let us know you want more thrilling tales like this. And make sure to flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this wild ride. We want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know the importance of supporting the channel, so let us keep this adventure going strong.